They dreamt of creating the world's most powerful Pokémon. But did they succeed? Well, that went as well as I thought it would. Alright, time to go, you three. That includes you, new guy. Hello and welcome to Pokemon Questions, a monthly series where I, your host Dragon J125, try to uncover mysteries and fill in plot holes of Pokemon lore. Hold up. Oh. Hello, blue screen. Anyway, if you have your own theories, feel free to share them in the comments below, and without further ado, let's head to Nugget Bridge. Not for Mewtwo, not yet at least, but for Mew. Yes, I know, I already have one in my party. Oh, right, I can't use flying doors. Anywho, let's try and figure out whether the creation of Mewtwo was a success. As it's a glitch, the idea that you're able to obtain a Mew before the second gym is obviously unintended, but it's so well known that most, if not all, Pokemon fans know about it. Just treat it like a normal part of the game. I mean, I do at least. Free mythical people, you can't tell me you wouldn't go for it as well every now and then. But that's not the point though. The point is how weirdly convenient it is. Now, this glitch can be used in many different locations, but the most commonly used location and most convenient by far is Nugget Bridge, right next to, well, Cerulean Cave. Oh, and the Mew that you find is at level 7. Mewtwo is found at level 70, but due to this being a glitch, we can only write this off as a huge convenience. But this massive convenience is so insane to the point that it feels intentional, for me at least. The Abra needed is found in the same patch of grass as the trainer, which is arguably the easiest NPC to perform the Trainer Fly exploit with. The Slowpoke with the exact special stat needed is extremely close by on the same route, and the final Cherry Berry on top, TM45 Thunder Wave, pun intended, is found on the exact same route opposite to the Trainer Fly NPC. Being the most reliable status inducing move in the game means that now if there was any difficulty, if there even was any present, well, said difficulty for catching me would drop drastically. Okay, that's out of my system. Enough ranting about Mew, let's focus. Now, Mewtwo. Yes, the sequel to Mew that is also a bioengineered genetic weapon. Mewtwo is supposed to be a clone of Mew, but if that's the case, how come it's not an exact carbon copy? After all, in biology, a clone is an organism or cell produced asexually, meaning one parent involved to which they are genetically identical. Aside from the fact they look different, Mew's base stats are more similar to Arceus than they are to Mewtwo. Now, to me, I think the best way to describe Mewtwo is more of a forced evolution of Mew that should not exist. An anomaly caused by mankind tampering with nature. Similar to how tampering with your Gen 1 game can spawn in a Mew. I'm still not letting that go, by the way. There are three main aspects of Pokemon lore that we have to look at when answering questions like these. The anime, the manga, and the games. Now, I often like to try and find a little middle ground when coming up with my theories so they can fit comfortably in each one, and I wouldn't have to change and alter them when applying them to different ones. But Mewtwo's origin varies a lot with each, aspect of Pokemon lore. Now, you could interpret these as different universes, But personally, the very last thing I would really want Pokemon to have is a multiverse, despite it being very likely that it does have one. Now, in the manga, Blaine is the main driving force for Mewtwo's completion, as it's his cells that helped stabilize Mewtwo when they were cloning him. And in the anime, there was an entire uncut story of Mewtwo's origin which aired in Japan in 1999 as a part of the first Pokemon movie, in which Dr. Fuji, the same Mr. Fuji from Lavender Town, most likely, is the one credited for Mewtwo's creation. The games is where it gets interesting. The only hint towards Mewtwo's origin story we have are a bunch of scattered journal entries found in Cinnabar Mansion. Key word, scattered, and by the looks of things, each journal entry must have been written by a different scientist, as they are all from different books. None of them mention anything about experimentation, but they do mention that they found a Mew, and that Mew gave birth to what would become Mewtwo. Wait, hold up. It gave birth? Okay, that's a huge plot hole. Let's just say Mew never evolved the ability to lay eggs. That still doesn't make sense. Anyway, the only way that we know that Mewtwo was experimented on in the original game is through its Pokédex entry, meaning Professor Oak knew. But due to him describing the experiments as horrific, we can only infer that Professor Oak was completely against it, and most likely couldn't do anything about it. Now, I want to talk about Mewtwo's parent, the Mew that gave birth. Now, at first, I assumed that it passed on during childbirth, for, well, obvious reasons. But then I rubbed my two little brain cells together and realized that just doesn't make sense. The idea that all common Pokemon are descended from Mew makes this Pokemon, in a sense, a biological template for all Pokemon, meaning theoretically, through the use of extreme genetic engineering, they could make their own custom Pokemon, and a powerful one, for a profit. And I've determined that Mewtwo's parent is still alive and can be found on the same Nugget Bridge, staying close to its child. The Mew glitch is canon. You can't convince me otherwise. Now, how it escaped from all those scientists at a measly level 7, I'm not so sure, but it could have been that with the help of its offspring. Though I do believe as a result of its anger, Mewtwo may have went on a rampage around Kanto, wrecking possibly everything, making Red and Blue fatherless in the process, and which could also explain why places like the power plant and Cinnabar Mansion are in ruins. It could also explain why there's little to no law enforcement in Kanto. Mewtwo could have possibly wiped them all out, allowing people like burglars and Team Rocket's free reign, leaving it up to you, a 10-year-old, to fix the mess, which would probably involve catching Mewtwo as the last of Kanto's great troubles. Now, with all this information in mind, whether Mewtwo was a success or not comes entirely down to the perspectives of the many parties involved in its creation. The Dr. Fuji from the anime saw it as a success, as he famously stated, "We dreamt of creating the world's strongest Pokemon, and we succeeded." But I highly doubt Giovanni from Team Rocket, who funded the entire operation, would agree. After all, what's good at Pokemon that doesn't take orders from humans? I think Professor Oak would actually see Mewtwo as an actual living creature instead of a cool science project funded by the Pokemon Mafia. He wouldn't focus on whether Mewtwo's a success or not, and more on the fact that this is a failure from within the Pokemon scientific community, as they were consumed by greed and abandoned all their morals, creating the Cerulean monster and Kanto's undoing. But what do you, the player, think? I personally think Mewtwo's fine the way it is. Competitive players? Not really. You know, for an alternate form of a Gen 2 Pokemon, I don't like you very much. Go away, Incineroar. Game Freak definitely sees this as a success. They have an extremely marketable 2-meter super psychic cat which never fails to grab people's attention. And it prints money. Now, I guess that's all for this month's Pokemon question. I had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you watched it this far, you have to, right? Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on next week's video. And I hope you hit all your fire blasts, thunders, blizzards, and keep daydreaming. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.